Hello and welcome to our career exploration program. Today we're going to be focusing on all things technology. My name is Jo Tuite and I'm the Director of Admissions at the Indiana Academy, and today I'm going to be your host for this program. I'm super excited for you to meet our panel. They are absolutely incredible and some of my favorite people. So with that, Beth, would you start us off with some introductions?
Hi there. My name's Beth Windish. I graduated from the Indiana Academy in 2001. Joe asked me to talk a little bit about what happened after that. I finished my undergrad at IUPUI, got a degree in political science from IU. And while I was there, I was a Boren Scholar and spent a year abroad studying at the American University in Cairo. That program helped propel me into public service, which brought me to Washington, D.C., where I began work for the Department of Homeland Security. And I've done 2 master's degrees while I've been at DHS and done that while working. Currently, I am the executive officer for Region 5, which is the Midwest, for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is part of the Department of Homeland Security. And we work to defend and protect the cyber and physical infrastructure that Americans rely on every hour of every day. So I'm happy to answer questions or share more, and I'll turn it over to Matt, I think is coming next.
Yeah, thank you. So I graduated out of Indiana Academy in 2006. I got a really excellent situation with Ball State University, and so I actually continued on there and became an architect for a brief period, and kind of spun that through information systems into the Center for Information and Communication Sciences, where I did a master's degree. And from there, I kind of got into software through telephony networking. So I was with Interactive Intelligence until they sold to Genesis, which is out of the Valley, for a while, and then kind of worked my way through a couple of different opportunities, kind of from the DevOps, more architecture performance side, all the way through to applications. So I went through Blackboard, actually worked as a contractor for a brief period for DHS, and eventually landed in sort of the startup space where I'm currently in sort of an HR niche, software as a service company where I am the vice president of engineering. And Sam, I think you are next.
Thanks. I graduated from the Academy in 2017. I took a gap year before I went to UT Austin, and I studied computer science and a degree called communications and leadership. So pretty interdisciplinary business, sociology, communications degree. In the summers in college, I'd also actually started studying Arabic at the Academy, and I continued taking classes while I was at UT. And so in the summer, I actually lived in Egypt. So I've spent about 2 years in Cairo too, which is, I should be talking to Beth more, I think. I was working in the startup space, helping people in the Arab world get their first experiences abroad, especially like with hackathons, tech conferences, stuff like that. So we would help them with money, with accommodations, with all visa stuff, all of that. After college, I worked for a tech company for a very short stint, and then I've been self-employed doing consulting work ever since. So a lot of it in the startup space, anything from also relevant context. I own a swim school. It's just all over the place here. I'm sorry. But so my original tech consulting was helping other service-based businesses incorporate technology. So especially old, antiquated, they start a lawn care business because they like cutting lawns, and then they have 5 employees, but they're still doing all their transactions on Venmo. So like helping small businesses like that. To my more recent project was helping with the data integrations process for a healthcare company. So healthcare companies get massive amounts of data, and some of the regulation behind that. They have to, but there's a lot of processes in healthcare that are super, super antiquated. So I would take a look at some of their products and their data integrations process when new healthcare companies come on, just to get the data under control and usable so that they can have better systems that allow for a little bit more functionality. And so now, yeah, I just do some different consulting projects. And as I mentioned, that can look like a wide variety of things using technology and a lot of different technologies behind that. Joe, back to you.
Thank you guys so much for those introductions. If you're watching here in the Zoom room and you have a question for our incredible panel, you can drop those questions in the chat box, either to everyone or to me privately. And if you're watching this on one of our social media platforms, just drop those questions in the comments, or you can email it to me at the email address you see next to my name on your screen. So I'm going to kick it off with a question that I've already received. And that question is, the technology field is very broad, and I'm interested in several different areas. Can you give me advice on how to narrow that down?
Do you want to
Oh,
go
go
in
ahead.
order, or yeah, sorry, I guess we'll awkwardly figure this out. Matt, it sounds like you wanted to go first, so we'll go for it.
Okay. So to me, I kind of can think of two perspectives from which this would be most useful. One is sort of an educational perspective. And from that perspective, I would say the biggest guide is if you go find the sort of the highest or the hardest science part of it, it's always a lot easier to start at, okay, I really understand the math behind machine learning, and then go from there down into, writing scripts and applications and doing system integration, et cetera. You can usually go down the stack easier than you can go up the stack, if that makes sense. The other perspective I was just going to note is that I do believe that what I've seen in my corner of the field is that a lot of things in sort of the emerging like AI, ML space, so like artificial intelligence, machine learning space, definitely are narrowing job opportunities. And so I think in that world, finding things that are really about critical thinking and integrating between things is going to be a lot more solid long-term play than something that you can teach a machine to do.
I guess I was going to say some similar things, but I guess another perspective on this is, I think when you're in your education, it's so important to try as many different things as possible and use those opportunities to collect data on yourself about what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. I think in working in technology, whether it's from the governance side, the technical side, emerging technologies, there's no situation where you get to stop learning. So it is a career field where you're always going to have to adapt and be developing yourself to maintain your skills and stay relevant as things change. So I think if you are interested in a lot of things, try a lot of different things, because sometimes then you realize, hey, I'm really enjoying this. And I encourage a lot of folks to take notes as you're doing it, because sometimes you don't even know until you step back and you think like, hey, that was really cool. I'm really proud of that project, or man, I got through that, but I don't know if I would want to do that again. And I think just getting data on yourself and what you like, but it's never going to end if you go down this road, because you have to constantly be learning. So if you love that, and if you're involved with the Academy, you probably do, you probably love learning. I would keep that in mind and listen to yourself. The other piece of it, and I think Matt was talking a lot about skills that are broad and then skills that are more subject matter expertise, narrow. That's another thing. Like, do you want to be the go-to person on this one thing, or do you like to have a general knowledge of a lot of different things and how they fit together? And some of that's your personality and interests, and some of it's just what you're naturally good at. So I think those are interesting things to think about as well, and just yeah, try a lot of different stuff right now. And then obviously when you get to the point where you're looking for opportunities, that will dictate some of what is possible. So being flexible and being willing to try something, and again, if it doesn't work for you, you try something else. So that's what I would offer.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm the worst person to ask about narrowing anything because I don't have any narrow focus whatsoever. But I really like having a rudimentary understanding of lots of different things because it allows me to be really agile. And it also allows my days to not ever get boring because I'm not working on the same project year after year after year or the same software year after year after year. And it's also a continual challenge to myself to keep learning because it is easy, I think, if you're in the same job to get stuck and to not keep learning. There's opportunities, but it's also very easy to get stuck in your ways. So yeah, I would just echo again what I guess both Beth and Matt said is to try a little bit of everything. Because one of the things that I've encountered in my career as being a technical person is being someone that can be agile and also be able to speak on the technology in a way that non-technical people understand is more valuable than my ability to code a website. So that's what I would just, I guess my lasting like advice that I would give you is just learn those soft skills and yeah, don't be afraid to try something. Like there's so many Coursera classes, Udemy classes that you can get a taste of something to see whether you like it or not, and just to have like, a very rudimentary knowledge of the topic.
Excellent advice. Thank you guys so much. I've noticed a trend at our last few career exploration programs, and it holds true for today. AI is a hot topic right now. So the question that is coming through is, what are some of the best undergraduate schools if I want to study artificial intelligence?
This might be a hot take, but I think that if you want to study artificial intelligence, you don't have to go to college. I think that you can go to college, but I think that there are a lot of really good programs. I guess I don't know too much about AI specifically, but in terms of quantum computing and machine learning, like there's some free classes that IBM puts out or low cost classes that IBM puts out on Udemy too. Um, Especially if you haven't already done it and you don't know that you want to do it, I think that's a different angle. Like if it's someone that already knows that they really want to do it versus they have heard that AI is the future and they think they want to do that, that might not be a good place to start an entire degree. I mean, it's hard to ask an 18-year-old what they want to study anyways, but um, and I'll just say like a trend in general that I've noticed with a lot of different universities computer science programs is they're adding more electives on AI and machine learning. And so like I went to UT Austin, right, which has a pretty good computer science department, but I also don't know a lot about academia and I don't know how it compares to others. Um, so I think I got a good, robust program there and I had opportunities to take a lot of electives, but is it as deep as I would need if I really wanted to work in the AI or machine learning space? No, but also that was just my undergrad.
One thing, I guess it depends a little bit on what you're, first off, I would really echo what Sam said that like as a person looking to get into a college at some point, you probably don't know. And so I think it's a lot more valuable to think, do I want to get really deep into math? Do I want to get really deep into software or technology? And like that should be sort of your decision basis, because then by the time you get out to the other end of it, whether it's going to be an AI specialization or some other kind of applied mathematics or something, like you probably don't have a good idea. And even just in the time it takes to become someone who's valuable in the AI space, which might be sort of a PhD thing if you're talking about like building AI. Or, but the other flip side is it could be, you can get on Kaggle or some of these online things right now and like go work on it. But if you're going to really be at the forefront, it's probably going to be 8 years before you're out in the field. So the world's going to change so much. When ChatGPT came out, there were a lot of experts in the field who did all this work on machine learning. And you would think, oh, that would come out and that'd be this big, exciting thing. It was actually a lot of depression because people had worked so hard and so much on all these unique different directions of trying to figure out machine learning. And then when the big LLMs came out, the large language models, the famous thing right now, they were so much better that they realized that all their years of research were basically thrown out because no one was ever going to, they were useless. You needed to use a frontier model and leverage a frontier model. It didn't make any sense to be doing your own thing. Now, the fact is those people are not like out of a job. They're actually still some of the highest demand people. But the point being is that no, you're not going to be able to tell 8 years in the future what is going to be the hot stuff. I don't think AI is going away, but it's you probably matters more to a person like this to think about, are you interested more in doing things around AI, sort of applied things, sort of doing integrations, or are you really interested in hard math, which if you want to be sort of on the frontier, it looks a lot more like just getting a PhD in mathematics than it does anything specific to AI.
I guess like I'd just add a couple of things. When it comes to this, I know at least where I'm at, we're looking at more certifications and trainings. I don't know that universities are as nimble in terms of building that curriculum. So I mean, I'm a first generation college graduate. I think everyone has to be a savvy consumer of what is going to help them meet their goals and, ask those questions. But I know Sands Institute is developing things that are, useful, that are modules that people can take. But yeah, Matt gave a good overview. I can't really say anything beyond that on the university side. I will say in some of the classes that I teach, I am asking people to think about use cases and like what's actually possible. So I think that kind of critical thinking is also really important in terms of understanding the capabilities and how it would actually be used. Because I think you'll find with not just this, any technology, when people get very excited about it and they don't really understand both the capabilities and the limitations, there can be a desire to jump on the popular hot thing. And understanding like how to use those tools and how to actually apply them to problems is a really difficult thing to both communicate and direct. And I think something Sam said when she was speaking earlier, like actually being able to tell people how does this stuff work is really, really important. So I know right now I'm asking students in Homeland Security courses to look at use cases and privacy impacts and like actually thinking about how would this stuff achieve a tangible goal that we need to meet some type of mission need. So that's the perspective that I see it from. And I think, that involves a lot of critical thinking in general.
Just to like tag on to that, something funny that I've observed, speaking of your point about critical thinking, because I really think that that's valuable and worth emphasizing. I do believe that if you're going to invest in an education, like you come out with a degree in math or something, that's more transferable to other things than whatever. But there are a lot of career changers in technology, and it is more open to career changers than many fields are. And I've got a suspicious number of people I've met who have degrees in philosophy, classics majors, and that kind of thing. So, which those professions are critical thinking. Like it really is critical thinking. And like I believe that for most people, you want to leverage your opportunity to be taught something by people with hard skills because those are going to be hard for you to push the boundaries on your own. But on the flip side, the actual like the differentiator between like the real people who thrive and like dominate the industry is critical thinking.
Thank you so much. This next question is kind of changing the direction a little bit. that we're talking about. Before I present that though, just a quick note here, if you're here in the Zoom room and you have a question, go ahead and keep those coming to me. You can do it again to everybody, or you can do it to me privately, and I promise I'll present them to the panel in the order in which they're received. And if you're watching this on one of our social media platforms, you could drop those questions in the comments, or you can email it to me at the email address next to my name. All right, here's the next question. Can you give us an idea of what your current day looks like in your job, what you like the most and the least? That's a
I'll
big
go first.
question.
I'll go
All
first
right.
because I'm in Nicaragua right now. So I love that I am not tied to a desk. I love that I can travel and I have a lot of freedom in it. I hate paying taxes on my own and being like the self-employed tax. No, but for real, my days look so different. I'm an early riser, so usually even when I'm traveling, I will get up early and I will get things done. And so people, and in like the signature of my email, it says, hey, my working hours are 3 days a week from 6 a.m. to noon, because I don't really want to have to be on my computer all day, every day. And I can get some really efficient work done and then, not have to do it every day. I know that sounds so glamorous, but it it is also a little bit more difficult in some regards because there's not the structure, and right, if there's an issue, there isn't like an HR or someone I can reach out to or someone who's organizing my contracts for me. I have to do that and like consult and pay a lawyer to help me with contracts, and like there are a lot of expenses that I think aren't spoken about a lot with self-employment. I mean, like getting healthcare is like $900 a month. So, some of those things, like, although it looks luxurious when I'm joining a Zoom call from Nicaragua, there are a lot of the non-luxurious things. One of the other best things is that I have a lot of freedom in who I work with, and I can be selective, and I don't have to just take a project because it came through the lead channel or whatever it is. I have the freedom to ensure that it's a good fit for both of us and that I want to spend my energy and my time working with that person. But yeah, I would say that I think that the cost is it's a huge barrier that a lot of people don't think about when they try and go into entrepreneurship.
So I work a more structured day, I guess, than Sam probably. I don't really have necessarily a typical day, but I kind of like that. So CISA, where I work, is one of the newest agencies. It was stood up in 2018, and I've been at some part of Homeland basically my whole professional, career in public service. And being someplace that's kind of new still lets you influence things and help shape what it looks like, which I find to be really exciting. So my day-to-day varies, but we have around 90 people through the 6 states that my responsibilities extend to. So I may be in our office in Chicago, meeting with people, working with our staff to help with, operations, training, mission support. Um, I may be going to a hackathon at one of the universities with our cybersecurity advisors and getting to meet students. I may be in DC helping with projects. I may be, going to the classified space to learn about current risks and threats. So it's a lot of being on calls. It's a lot more of the kind of governance and planning is more my role, but doing strategic planning, making sure our workforce can be successful, and hiring. Hiring is a lot of, I spend a lot of time on that because obviously that's a really important thing for our success, but also can be challenging in the technology field just because of the demand for really good people. So I guess the things that I really like, I love public service. I love serving, my country and the American people and making a difference. That makes me feel good every day. I love my team and I really love our mission. because we work with owners and operators of critical infrastructure to help make things more resilient and secure. And it's on a voluntary basis. So it's a real partnership, and that's really fun to see kind of grow and be effective. In terms of things that I don't like, gosh, I'm trying to think. Sometimes, it can be challenging when you're trying to navigate problems within more of a structure. I know Sam's talking about being on your own and how that it kind of cuts both ways. You're not on your own, but you got to deal with the other people. So you have to figure out, how to get through some of those things. I guess I've become accustomed to change, so that's not a thing that I really see as a negative, but a lot of times that can be very hard on a large organization in terms of helping people manage that and navigate it. So just spending the time to take care of people and make sure that we are adapting and changing can pull me away sometimes from diving into a certain subject more deeper. And I guess I would say I'm also at a point in my career where I'm a manager rather than just a subject matter expert. And so that can be challenging sometimes when you really enjoy being deep into a subject matter and you have to change your way of thinking because now you're responsible for, larger things. So sometimes I like that, and sometimes I wish I could go back and just be the subject matter expert and not have all of those other pieces to worry about. But the people I work with are great. So I think it's like no matter what path you choose, you always miss out on something. If that makes sense. So
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I feel like in some ways my career is a little bit halfway between you guys because it's a reasonably small company, so I don't have to deal with nearly the number of like specific. I actually have to do it that Sam probably does, but because of my role, there are a lot of cases where like if we do the R&D tax credit, like I've got to be the guy to like figure all that stuff out. And there's a lot of things that kind of roll to the that I kind of have to be a catch net for. And so in some ways that drives my schedule a lot. We also have people on the West Coast. So what I've tried to do when I'm being successful at it is my whole afternoon is pretty much just blocked out in meetings. And to some extent, I don't always have a lot of control over what I'm doing. It is certainly the case that like as a tendency as you get higher up in your career, you're going to be in more meetings and less kind of heads down work. And people management is a thing all to its own, sort of regardless of what your sort of technical area is or non, just whatever you're doing, people management's is a thing. But one thing that I do really love is that we've kind of emphasized at where I'm working, people who are in leadership still trying to get into the weeds. And so my mornings, a lot of times I can get down and still kind of plug away at important projects or other things. And so I really love that. And I also really love that because I'm working primarily remotely at a software startup. I can have a morning that looks like walking a mile and a half into town to, work at a cafe in the morning and then, walk back and do my meetings or that kind of thing, which is really lovely. Probably the worst thing is that things don't sleep ever. It's a little bit like becoming a parent in some senses. Like recently, I had a couple days off around Thanksgiving, including Thanksgiving when almost no one was working, but people were still submitting things to like our bug bounty program, and there were still, other things coming up. Time clock was ticking on, and so things that deadlines were closer and now close to due. And so I had a heck of a time sort of getting back caught up after Thanksgiving happened because there were just all these things that are like, well, like if we have someone thinks they found a vulnerability, like you can't just like ignore that. And so yeah, that's probably my least favorite is just there's sort of this realm of things that you can't always hand off to someone else. Because they're so ad hoc or so specific or so whatever, and they just sort of end up collecting and you just sort of don't have control over a piece of that. And I don't love that.
Thank you so much. The next question that we have is asking what are some of the best ways to find the best jobs in the technology field. So Beth, I'm going to repost that link that you shared, and maybe if you want to kick that one off and talk a little bit about that and anything else, of course.
Sure. So I mean, when we say best jobs, I also do believe that there's a good place for every person, and we don't all want the same things, and that's okay. That's something I, definitely early on in my career, found that was even within the agency I've been with for a long time, different places have different cultures. So the best place, it depends on I think, not to beat this with a dead horse, but think about your values and what matters to you and what you want your life to look like, and shape that towards those things. Because I think Matt is touched on this, building hard skills. Sam talked about soft skills to explain things to people, critical thinking. Those things are going to serve you well, but ultimately, I think trying to chase what the perfect opportunity is, it's never going to work. You need to listen to yourself. I mean, you just have to, and at the end of the day, you have to be happy. But Joe put the link in for CISA. I think it's a great place to work. I would say, obviously what I do is more at the kind of governance management level. But if you take a look at that link, there's a lot of different opportunities to join CISA, both in those kinds of more in kind of what I do, but also in more technical things, because CISA is responsible for things like federal networks. So when you see those .govs that different agencies have their websites, CISA provides the tools and services to take care of cybersecurity across the federal enterprise. And we also engage in cyber defense operations, and also push towards bigger policy to help cybersecurity throughout industry, like the ideas of secure by design and putting into contracts and supply chains resilience and good practices to make technology more resilient. And we also work with our partners, owners and operators of critical infrastructure across the country to help build their governance and capacity, because we're all interconnected. And we've seen a lot of interesting things happen when some of those vulnerabilities are exploited. So there's a lot of different cool ways to get involved. I would say with the federal government, it can be difficult to get started. And so something like the link that Joe put in there, when you have internships or recent graduate opportunities, those can be ways to get exposed to the federal government, but also have ways to get through that initial, getting in the door can be hard. I mentioned I did the Boren scholarship. That was a opportunity I did in undergrad that was a critical language scholarship for Arabic, but it also came with a special hiring authority because it was paid by the US government, that I had an easier way to start. So I would say if you're looking at public service, things like recent grad programs, or things like even Peace Corps, Boren, all these types of things are ways to help you kind of get down that path. But if folks are interested in learning more about CISA or looking at that link, I'm happy to help connect them, and Joe knows how to reach me. So
Yeah, piggybacking on that, there's also language flagship programs. So IU has one, I think, for Arabic and Chinese, but around the country, there's a few different language flagship programs. So I did the Arabic flagship at UT. And so you also get preferential treatment if you want to work for the government. I did not, but one of my recommendations is to not wait for the perfect job, or only search online for the perfect job in job boards, but make your perfect job happen. I wanted to work in Egypt because I went there and I liked it, and I was studying Arabic and I wanted to learn that dialect. And I literally just contacted people and was like, how can I do this? How can I do this? Who do you know? If you don't know, who can you get me in touch with? And someone that I recently did some work for, a startup, I saw that they had a bunch of job postings online for some of these, some just fragmented different departments within their company. And I emailed them and I said, how can I help you? so that you don't need to hire for all these 3 people, because they had job postings that were months old that they still hadn't hired people for. And so in seeing that, I emailed them and I said, like, how can we make it work? How can we work together so I can help you? And I wasn't directly applying for those jobs and then just like waiting. I had to dig and find their hiring people's email, contact the CEO on LinkedIn. Like, I am so annoying, but I make it happen. And you have to be really desensitized to rejection in this, right? Because a lot of times there's people who don't respond or people who say no. And that can be hard. Like, that can be a kick to your ego, right? But you have to build a tough shell, and through that you'll create the opportunities that you want with enough hard work, and maybe also enough annoyance.
Yeah. I would definitely hard agree on I feel like to like say it another way, like networking, actually reaching out to other human beings and establishing relationships, asking for help, asking if you can help, like that is actually by far the most effective way to get anywhere in career situations, period. So that is really like the GOAT advice here. The other one that I'll note, particularly from a student perspective, is that if you can get yourself on a good path, it tends to accelerate. It's sort of the rich get richer, the poor get poorer kind of deal. If you can get yourself in a position where you get any internship, earlier, and then you get a better internship and you get a better internship, like that's going to lead you down the path to getting opportunities, more contacts in the industry. You're going for, that quote entry level position. Well, you've got 3 positions under your belt. That's a lot less risky for the employer. That's a lot more attractive, that you're making your candidacy. The other thing, and Beth's note kind of pointed this a little bit, and I just want to point out that there's also like not necessarily specifically from like language or public positions, but like in Indiana, there's a thing called the Orr Fellowship. It's a very prestigious fellowship, and basically the idea is they'll you apply for it, and if you get in, they'll basically place you with sort of an externship, sort of a sponsored job. And my observation is that if you can get into one of these programs, one of these fellowships, one of these accelerators, and there's also all sorts of big companies that have these where they will actually invest in you, they'll do rotational programs. As a student, I saw a few of those in my time, and I never did any of those. As a professional, what I've observed is that they really are what they say on the box. They are a cheat code, and if you can get into one, you absolutely should. And if you care about whatever the direction is, like make it happen, because it really is a cheat code.
If I could just add one thing on, because when Sam was talking too, this really put something in my brain too, is it's that I think it's especially important for people who, I mean, we're talking to academites, like these are bright people, and there's going to be times in your job that you don't love what you're working on. Like that's just like the reality. There's going to be times where you find like you might get bored. You might not, love that thing, and there's going to be transitions, right, between things you love, and that's just part of life. And I think what Sam was saying was really important. And it made me think of a time where I was in my career, a part where I was like, this is fine, but I don't maybe love this, or it's not like fully taking up all of the brain energy that I need something to like basically stay out of trouble and not bug my husband too much. Cause you got to keep me out of trouble. Make things that are your own. And I think it's really important even when you start in some careers that it can feel like either, you're thrown in the deep end, but it could also feel like, man, I wish that this was more faster when you're a smart, bright person. And I do think having things that are your own are important because jobs can disappoint you. Things can happen, companies can go out of business, but when you have things that are yours, that you can put your mental energy into, whether it's something totally different than work or if it's work adjacent, it's good for your mental health and just your general happiness. So like an example, I will say I did a podcast for a long time because I like reading books and talking to people who read books, and they were about national security. And I just had a great time doing it. And it got me it opened doors for me that I didn't expect. I was just doing it because I wanted to talk to people who were interesting, and I like, it was cool to me and it was mine. And so when I changed jobs, I still had that thing. I think it's important. And if it's genuine to you, people see it. Like, you can't network and be artificial. You have to like follow the things that you love, or it just doesn't work, in my opinion. And you have to have those things, not just to give you balance and like the ability to have some ownership and control over the direction of your life. But also, as bright people, you need to have something that you can run as fast as you can on. And sometimes in a workplace, you have to take a step, wait for everyone to catch up, do another thing, work, you know what I mean? Like, that's part of it. And I think just know, if you want to be happy as a bright person, have something, whether it's work related or not work related, that you can run as fast as you can and do it at your own speed, because it will also make you better in the workplace when you're not annoyed with everyone waiting for them to catch up with you. So just little academite life advice there.
Thank you so much. I'm going to do a quick screen share here real quick. All right. You should see a QR code on your screen right now. And if you'll scan that, I will be happy to send you some cool Academy swag. And panel, you also have some cool stuff coming. So I'm going to leave that up there for just a second while I go ahead and present the next question, but definitely scan that so you can get some cool swag. Let's see. All right, panel, here's your next question. Is it better to go for a relatively well-established field such as biomedical science, or go to AI, which is still in the early stages?
My opinion on this is that the difference between biomedical science and AI is significant enough that probably you have other preferences which are more important than this question. Like, either one of those fields are places where there's really exciting research and stuff happening, lots of job opportunities, etc. And it is often the case in STEM, like with many of these things, it's like, well, you better, like, some of these things in some ways are all the same because it's just how much hard math do you want to do? But in a different direction, I would kind of say, like my wife works for Lilly and I'm in technology, so she's in a pharmaceutical environment. She hires a lot of people who are, in sort of these fields. It's a very different industry. Do you want to be in a life sciences, more lab science kind of thing? Or do you want to be in something that's more, you're dealing with, it's more logic puzzles, hardware, software, VC funding, state espionage. Like, there's really two different like areas. And so I kind of feel like, I mean, first off, at an undergrad level, potentially, there's still a lot of overlap, but as you eventually kind of find your way between these things, I feel like it should be more around what really gets you going and what your particular skills are, right? Like, if you get into organic chemistry and you're just like the whiz of the class, like, please go do that, because other people are scared of that and they will pay you lots of money. So you think about that and they don't have to think about that, right? But you're not going to do any organic chemistry in AI, so like, see what color your parachute is,
Yeah, Matt makes a really good point. I was going to bring up, so my mom works for Walgreens, and I know that they've been hiring a lot of machine learning, data scientists, AI people like crazy. But in those roles, you are doing the logic, you are doing the problem solving. Pharmacy is just the background. So you could be doing that same lead machine learning role in a hospitality company, in a travel agency. So like the pharmaceutical part is not evident if you're a lead machine learning. Maybe the variable names are different, but the type of work you're doing is still hard, like AI or math, right? Just like Matt was saying. But if you want something that, I mean, in a lot of those roles in like CVS or Walgreens, they're like more senior roles. It's a lot harder to just get a new role in AI for one of those companies. Whereas I've worked a lot with startups, right? Startups are a lot more willing to take a risk on someone. And so if you can prove that you've got enough grit and maybe agility, I think a startup is someone that's going to give you a chance a million years before CVS or Walgreens. But yeah, I want to just like echo again what Matt said, is that it just truly depends on what you want to do with that. I mean, I think that's a great space to try and find like a minor where you've got some experience working in whatever one is not as big of a priority for you. But yeah, I mean, that's what college is for, is to like just figure out what gets you most excited. I mean, I also your time at the academy, right? Like that helped me a lot to figure out what you actually like.
I guess too, like this whole thing makes me also realize how different this panel, we all have different experiences, so we look at things from different angles. So I would listen to Matt and Sam on this, because when I think about threats to healthcare, I'm thinking about the cybersecurity piece of it based on my lens. So things like medical device manufacturers, like the supply chain related to hospitals, ransomware attacks on patient records, like there's all of those different pieces too, that healthcare is such a critical infrastructure sector for us that we have IT related things that can impact patient safety and their and people's lives. So there's so many different ways you can approach this. So yeah, that's not helpful. It's just we're just telling you all these things, and but listen to yourself. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. The next question I actually really like. I'm kind of excited to hear your responses on this one. It is, who inspires you, and do you have a mentor?
All right, everyone else is thinking, and I already got an answer. Yeah, so I think technically my dad inspires me a lot. My dad works for AT&T. He works in the cybersecurity division, mostly for the potential threats posed by quantum computers. So like even when I talk to him, I also don't understand. I know when I said that, everyone was like, "Oh God, she's going to talk about it." I do not. But him, and then my brother is in academia. He's about to start his rad degree in the new year, and he's in like quantum. I also don't know. When they talk, I don't know. But it's really cool to see like the work that they've done. And my cousin works in a similar space too. So like at Christmas dinners, right, where I get to see the effects of the technology in more than just hearing about qubits and all the stupid technology that's in quantum machinery. But so I think technically those people, and I have a good friend in Austin who that also works for a startup that he gets to see a lot of impact in his work, and it's using AI. And so whenever we like catch up for a lunch or something, it's really cool to hear how that technology is helping. And I see it, in my consulting work too, right? It's a lot more visible, the results of my work. um, I yeah, I do have a mentor. I have a few different environments where I am a mentor, but then I will also mention that I am a mentor for some undergraduate students of computer science at UT Austin, and I think that being not forced, but having to regularly like reach out and learn about what their experience is now helps me stay relevant and helps me just with the agility of my thinking. Um, but yeah, I have a mentor that I have a, it's a little bit different for me. My mentor helps me also with the swim business and like growth with owning a swim school. So that's a little bit different. But I will say that I think that having a neutral third party in any capacity, whether it's a therapist, a mentor, I think that can be really helpful. But then I'll also add that the value of being a mentor has helped me a lot too.
All right, I'll go next. All right, so I feel like in some ways I have worse answers to this, but I feel like I have a relevant enough take on it. So I'm not sure that I have like a specific mentor, but what I have had is, especially after COVID and things started like recoalescing, is I have tried to build groups of people. I found that like other people who are in the position I'm in of like as an engineering leader in different companies, like there's so many different questions and things that come up. And so like the ability to get with people who are facing similar problems to you, and some of whom are, newer from a different background, some of who are a lot ahead of you, right? And so they are able to look at some problems that seem very thorny and they're just like, oh, I remember hitting that. Like it's actually simple. Just do this. Don't ever consider doing that, or it's usually not that clear, but and so it's, so like, for instance, there's someone in the Indianapolis area, Matt Brown, who is in one of the groups that I'm with. And I wouldn't necessarily say that like he's a mentor, but like he's a person who's a notch ahead of me in the maturity curve. And I feel like I get a lot of benefit from working with him and other people, and we'll do like coffee sessions and other stuff like that. And to Sam's point, there's also sort of a group of people that I've interacted with in professional settings, people who applied to a job but didn't, weren't really competitive, but like we kept talking afterwards or whatever, where it's sort of the reverse relationship, and they're applying for jobs or trying to feel something out in the industry, and I could be like, oh yeah, I've been there, and I can tell you like it's time to look at this, it's time to look at that. And I think in both of those directions those are extremely valuable. As far as being inspired, I feel like that's a very deep topic for me in some ways, that I've kind of like had to search out. And it's funny that question on this call, because I feel like one of my most recurring sort of think backs is actually Mr. Willis, if any of you guys had him when he was at the academy. I find myself thinking sort of about him and what his take on things would be increasingly, which is strange, because he passed a few years ago, and so you wouldn't think it would go that direction, but maybe that's just part of getting older. I don't know.
Gosh, I think what inspires me has changed. I would have answered the question probably differently in my 20s than I would now. But I guess there's a few, and one organization, Girl Security, their founder is a woman named Lauren, who she truly inspires me. That's a organization that I've worked with since about 2019, who looks to find ways for women and girls to find opportunities in national security fields, but also to really think about what does security mean, and listening to young women and girls and understanding like that their voices are important. So I think that organization is really inspiring to me, especially coming up in the industry that I have, but also folks like Lauren, my current boss, other people I've worked for, Tamika Edwards, people who are looking at collaborative leadership, people who are looking to lead with service in mind, but also to treat people like people. More and more, I want to achieve the goal and the mission, but I can also do that while treating people well and letting everyone bring their ideas to the table. So that's really important to me, and that really inspires me. And sometimes that means having hard conversations with people to, call people into account when they need to correct things, but knowing that everyone matters. So people who do that really inspires me, because I think we spend a lot of time at work, and how we treat people matters. So I work for two people now, Alex and Kathy, who embody that, and that's part of why I work there, is because of the culture that they have in that workplace. and I've had people like that have been mentors throughout. I think, you know, some of my former bosses are people I'm still in contact with. Also like DHS has mentorship programs and coaching that I've taken advantage of throughout my career, and stay in touch with some of those folks who have helped me become more self-aware about things that maybe I could have used a little help on. But yeah, I definitely do that. And I think just kind of on Matt's point, I think Sam was talking about like networking and meetups. I continually join groups where I want to be around other smart people. So like the Chicago Council on Global Affairs, I did their fellowship program, and I'm with people who are business owners, people who have done private sector leadership, like just to help you be around other people who look at problems differently. And also they're just great people to be friends with. So I think like continuing to look for those opportunities is super important, because I like to be surrounded by bright people who have different perspectives and treat each other with respect and kindness.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to do one other quick screen share. It's been a great conversation when time has gotten away. So just very quickly, I do want to share some of our upcoming programs. There's another QR code there that you can scan, and it'll take you to our visit page where you can see a complete list. But these are just a couple of quick ones. We have one more left this month. That's a short program month due to the winter break. And then you can see in January, we'll be back the first Tuesday of the month with our virtual ambassador chat. Then we'll have an application workshop on the 14th. Keep in mind that priority deadline is coming up quickly at the end of January. I believe it's January 24th. And then there are a few other programs, including our Discovery Day, which is an on-campus program where you can really kind of take a deep dive into the academy and take a tour, talk with students who are truly the best source of information about the program. So I'm going to leave that up for just a moment so you can use that QR code while I ask our final question of the day. And that question is, knowing what you do now about your college and career experiences, what advice would you give me?
All right, I got the advice. Take the non-traditional path. Don't be afraid to like only do, I don't know, the major plan. And if the major doesn't allow for a lot of flexibility or any electives, like be I don't know, willing and excited to take a non-traditional path. Right. I think the academy is maybe the first step of a non-traditional path, but and it's like really hard, right? It's really hard to leave your house when you're 16 and have a curfew. I never had that. I got grounded for the first time when I was at the academy. Um, but I think that sums up my advice, is like just be willing to do something that other people aren't doing, whether that's the academy, whether that's in your college, like taking I took a class called Anthropology of the Himalayas. I learned that I don't need to learn that much more about anthropology or the Himalayas, but I took it. And yeah, I think that even as we've seen in my career, right, it's really non-traditional, but for me, it rewards me in all of the ways that are really important to me. And so that's my advice.
I was trying to think for a minute because I kind of mentioned what I was thinking about as far as advice a little bit earlier, but I'll reformulate it and reinstate it a little bit, which is I I feel like when I was young, I got a lot of advice that was indicating to me that like I was very much a STEM kind of kid. And I somehow absorbed this advice that like, oh, well, no, I shouldn't, go become an engineer. I should, do something, follow my dream or something. And that ended up, I think ultimately paying off in some ways to Sam's point, like taking a non-traditional path can ultimately sometimes be the best thing. But I kind of also just want to say, or what I would really say to my younger self is like, don't be afraid to just like really lean into the thing you're good at. The thing you're good at probably is one, a thing you really enjoy, and like all sorts of science backs that up, that you enjoy doing things you're good at. And two is probably something that you're going to excel at and like it's going to pay well and open the doors for you. Like lean into your talent. It's okay. Whatever that is probably what you should be doing.
That's such good advice for both of them. It's funny getting ready for this. I remember getting my acceptance letter for the academy. It's so exciting. Um, and I guess I know I've said this probably multiple times, but try different things, listen to yourself. In terms of, I don't have a lot of regrets in my path, really, because I probably couldn't have told you when I was at the academy that this is where I would end up. I mean, I'm the first person to have my job, so it didn't even exist. So I didn't know to, even think of that. But I think for me, I would just say anyone who's in this boat who's coming at it from first generation college attendee, or maybe family that's not incredibly well off, you'll be okay. Those are things that I dealt with, and I made a lot of decisions to go places and do things that didn't put me in a difficult financial situation, but I was able to use grants and programs and opportunities to do a lot of things. And I find no matter where you are, if you find people and tell them you're interested in something, they want to help you, be successful and do different things. So I did attend a different university the first semester, which wasn't the right fit for me. And I did transfer my second semester, my freshman year, and found what was right for me. So like that just happens. That's fine. But I would just say for me, especially as someone who no one in my family had graduated from college, I wasn't going to have financial support. I knew I wanted to go to Washington, D.C. I tried to make choices that didn't put me in a lot of debt. And I think that there are still things that I guess like there's a lot of like I have to go to the name of this or that. Sometimes yes, like sometimes that's no joke what you need to do, and there are other times where it's just not. Because you can make a lot out of different opportunities. I mean, I have an IU degree. I'm not like sitting here trying to talk about it. I mean, obviously that's a great school. But like it's a public school and those different decisions. So I think don't be afraid to also weigh those things, because I know that student loan debt is probably something, if it's not on your mind, it was always on my mind. How am I going to do this? How am I going to pay for this? And public service helped with some of that, but also trying to be very mindful that I knew if I got too far into debt, I wouldn't be able to take risks in the future. And like for me, moving to DC after going to Egypt was, a risk, and then moving to DC was a risk. And I had 3 jobs for a while until I made it come together, because I just didn't have that safety net. So I have master's degrees that I was sponsored for in my employment, and some of that's just been because I've had good people looking out for me, but I think it's just important, like not everybody's got the financial means to think about schools like as, it being limitless. I certainly did not. There were schools that I wasn't going to apply to because there was no way I was going to be able to afford them. And that was a reality, but I'm really happy with where things ended up, because if I were, underwater and a ton of student loan debt, I couldn't have made like risky choices in my life, which were really fun and the things that I wanted to do, because I would be worrying about payment. So I don't know if that's like a downer to end things on, but I think it's there can be this pressure to go after, certain places or things. And like, I think that there's ways to be successful depending, there's different paths. So yeah.
Fantastic advice. Beth, Matt, Sam, thank you so much for joining today and for sharing your advice, your wisdom, your experiences with our participants. I truly appreciate it and have absolutely loved hearing from you. To all of our participants, both here in the Zoom room and watching on one of our social media platforms, thank you for joining us. And if you have questions after you leave, please feel free to send those to me on the email you see listed next to my name on your screen. Until next time, have a great day.